We all carry moments that we can't quite explain, moments of sorrow, of tenderness, of sudden clarity. And every now and then, a piece of writing comes along, that really touches your heart and just really hits you right in the face. Every one of us carries hidden stories, stories of love, of loss, of despair, moments when we felt like the world had fallen apart. And sometimes all it takes is just a single poem to remind us that our stories are not really that different or separate from other people. We're all woven together, breath by breath, experience by experience, and few writers express that shared humanity more beautifully than Thich Nhat Hanh. So some little background information about Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich was a Vietnamese Zen monk and peace activist who was instrumental in reviving Vietnamese Buddhism and also became kind of like a central voice of engaged Buddhism during the Vietnam War. And after speaking out against the war and refusing to take sides, he was exiled from his native land in 1966. And then back then, Martin Luther King Jr. nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize the following year. So he later founded Plum Village in France, which became this part of his teaching and the global mindfulness movement. He has written over 130 books that carry really deep, profound Buddhist teachings on emptiness, on compassion, on fearlessness. And his prose and poetry style is very simple and non-technical. That's what I love about him. But now about the book. So Call Me By My True Names, that's what it's called. It's a collection of poems that spans decades, starting from Thich's early years in Vietnam throughout the establishment of Plum Village. And broadly speaking, it's a very profound collection, I would say. It explores personal and collective suffering, childhood memories, war, famine, refugee crises, etc. It interweaves mindfulness and global trauma, so to say, and keeps returning to certain Dhamma themes. I'm going to read, I would say, one of the most profound poems I've ever read, on Buddhism. It's right here in this book. So basically, this is what it says. I'm the 12-year-old girl, refugee on a small boat, who throws herself into the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. And I am the pirate, my heart not yet capable of seeing and loving. Please call me by my true names so I can hear all my cries and laughter at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. So Thich's commentary on this poem states that after the Vietnam War, many refugees fled the country. It was said that half the boat people, as he called them, died in the ocean, and only half arrived, at the shores of Southeast Asia. Among those people were many young girls who were raped by sea pirates in the Gulf of Thailand. And even though the UN and many countries tried to help the government of Thailand prevent this kind of piracy, sea pirates continued to inflict so much suffering onto these refugees. And one day, Plum Village received a letter telling them about a young girl on a small boat who was raped by a Thai pirate. When I first read this passage, I felt the same reaction as everyone else. What is he talking about? Is he justifying rape? But Thich Nhat Hanh invites us to look even deeper. He's not excusing the act. He's not minimizing the girl's suffering. Instead, he's asking us to take a step back and examine the causes and conditions. What gives rise to a pirate? What gives rise to violence? From a Dhamma perspective, actions do not rise from a permanent evil self that doesn't exist. They arise from ignorance, from craving, from fear, from trauma, and from conditions stretching back generations. If I'd been born into that same village, raised with the same violence, the same hunger, the same deprivation, who can say with certainty that I would be different? So if a child is born today in a region controlled by extremist ideologies, where education is restricted, violence is normalized, where fear constantly shapes their worldview, that child's mind is going to be conditioned accordingly. This does not make harmful actions acceptable. Of course, the Dhamma never condones violence. All the Dhamma does is that it invites us to investigate and verify according to what we experience. It does remind us that hatred does not arise in isolation. It arises dependent on certain conditions. And to understand those conditions, again, is not to excuse them, but it's to prevent that same repetition. So, reading the commentary of the poem, Thich explains that first he naturally took the side of the girl, but with deeper investigation, he saw that the pirate was also a victim of ignorance of conditions. He didn't excuse harm, again, but he refused to strip a person of their humanity, which is exactly the kind of radical, non-sentimental compassion that I believe every Buddhist should try to cultivate, especially in this day and age, in this moment in time where everything is so volatile. Personally, I find this book very healing and also somewhat unsettling. Unsettling in a sense that, like, it refuses to let me look away. This book, this collection of poems, it asks me to see that the seeds of violence and ignorance are not abstract forces out there. They are right here in my heart, and they are these potentialities within my mind. And yet it is healing in the same sense, because when you acknowledge that truth without denial, with compassion, things just make sense to you. Like, you stop taking things personally, you stop seeing things as my suffering, because suffering is not exclusive to you. It's a universal problem. There's a universality to suffering. So compassion, like you said, it naturally arises. It's not forced, it's not fabricated. It's born from understanding, from seeing things as they really are. So Call Me By My True Names, this collection of poems, is not just a book of poems or poetry. It's a practice of looking deeply. And it's not only for poets or Buddhists, it is for anyone who wants to understand suffering and what it truly means to respond to suffering with wisdom and compassion.